Recently, Steve Crowder from Louder with Crowder got his hands on 3 pages of Audrey Hale, the recent Nashville trans shooters manifesto. At least that's what it was described as. Looking at it, though, it looks like 3 pages from a journal. Let's have a look. Death Day, 3/27/23, which would have been the morning in question. Today is the day. The day has finally come. I can't believe it's here. Don't know how I was able to get this far, but here I am. I'm a little nervous, but excited too. Been excited for the last 2 weeks. There were several times I could have been caught, especially during the summer of 2021. None of that matters now. I am almost an hour and 7 minutes away. Can't believe I'm doing this, but I'm ready. I hope my victims aren't. My only fear is if anything goes wrong, I'll do my best to prevent that of any sort. God, let my wrath take over my anxiety. It might be 10 minutes. It might be 3 to 7. It's going to go quick. I hope I have a high death count. Ready to die. Ha ha. Audrey. On another page, Audrey Hale breaks down their extended timeline for how they were planning the day to go. Of all of the things that were on here, the only real things of note that I think were particularly interesting was that they say that 11:20 a.m. they made a final videotape that I guess was supposed to be 10 minutes, which makes me wonder where that videotape is. I'm assuming that it's in the hands of the police and is likely never to see the light of day to the public, but then they put their time to die, Anyway, moving on to the next one. Now, this last one is interesting because if you remember when this was covered, the police claimed that they were still looking for a motive. But here on what looks like February 3rd of 2023, their motive was pretty clear. Kill those kids, those crackers, which was ironic because Audrey Hale is Caucasian, going to private fancy schools with those fancy khakis and sports backpacks. Wealthier daddies' Mustangs and convertibles. Fuck you little shits. I wish to shoot you weak asses or weak ass dicks with your mop yellow hair. Want to kill you all, little crackers. Bunch of little faggots with your white privileges. Fuck you faggots. It's kind of ironic to me that somebody from the LGBTQ community would use that word. But either way, that's pretty clear what the motive is. The fact that there's any question about what the motive is interesting. What are they covering up for, really? But I will say that this is almost more of a racist message than an anti-cis or straight message, which of course makes me want to look at the rest of the journal and that final 10-minute video that, again, we'll probably never see. But you have to remember, folks, that they spend so much time trying to assure us that it's conservative Christian values are what lead to the white supremacists that are supposed to be the biggest threat to our safety, supposedly the biggest terrorist threat in the country. But these ideologies that are incredibly anti-white that I've gone over multiple times are definitely affecting the consciousness of the woke. If you guys remember my video that was called Killmonger Somehow a Hero, I go over not only what the actor himself said, but what people who interviewed him said about how Killmonger was somehow in the Black Panther movie not the villain, even though he was trying to arm all of the people of color of the planet to kill all of the white people on the planet. That's an example of kind of the backwards thinking that we have here. So, bearing all of this in mind, one of the points that Crowder made during his Rumble stream that I feel was, very correct, was that if there had been any kind of white supremacist or conservative motive behind the shooter, you tend to hear those things immediately. Like some of you may remember from my video about Daryl Brooks, The CNN had put out an article as soon as Kyle Rittenhouse was exonerated, stating that there was nothing more dangerous in the United States than an angry white man. And Darrell Brooks was an interesting case because anybody who bothered to look deeper into what his motivations were would have come across his Facebook and Twitter posts that were blatantly anti-white, racist, black supremacist, etc. And for those of you who don't remember, Darrell Brooks is the man who, in Waukesha, Wisconsin, drove his SUV into a Christmas parade, murdering 6 people and injuring 40. Similarly, the NYC shooter, meaning the subway shooter, was also a black supremacist racist, and he opened fire on a subway, and nobody talked about his motivation. In fact, that story's more or less just been memory hold. And then there was a DC shooter who had a picture of Akub, or whatever the hell his name is, which is a character from, black supremacist, specifically like Nation of Islam theology, supposed to be like the black scientist who created white people or whatever. So there's plenty of this kind of extremism going on. But what tends to happen with the alt-left as it is now, if any such things ever occur, then we need to be discussing mental illness. If things like, say, the Buffalo shooting occurred, they identified the Buffalo shooter as not a lone wolf, but a mainstream Republican in Rolling Stone magazine. Despite the fact that his manifesto, he describes himself as an authoritarian communist, left-leaning. So there's definitely an effort being made right now to make people believe that conservatism and Christianity are extremely dangerous, and they're dangerous ideologies that lead to violence. However, in contrast, apparently, nobody is ever motivated to become radicalized to the point of doing something like this by any ideologies that they expose. It's just obvious nonsense. And it's clear that there's a social engineering going on. I will link in the cards after this my various videos that I just mentioned, but it's all very clearly part of a bigger picture. We are being manipulated to believe that their ideologies are safe and our ideologies are dangerous. And if for some reason somebody from their, motivated by their ideology does anything, well, it's just about their mental health, and we have a mental health crisis. But supposedly the Buffalo shooter was in complete sanity, not to mention somehow a mainstream Republican, while at the same time being a left authoritarian. It's mental gymnastics at the perfect 10 level. And it's honestly depressing. But anyway, I will follow this story further. I was kind of surprised when this leak came out. And I think everybody was expecting, that eventually it would. The pictures, when I looked at them closely, looked like they were taken by a police officer sitting in a police car. And I don't know that. I don't know if I can ever confirm that. I was surprised we even got this much. I honestly think they were hoping they were just going to let this go and never talk about it again. But here it is. And it's strange. It's just like I said earlier, I was expecting to see a lot more stuff about this person being trans. But apparently they just hate white people and call them crackers, and they hate people with white privilege. That was one of the other things that was identified in one of these papers. Fuck you and your white privilege. So you're a white person doing this, which is something else that I encounter all the time on Facebook. I got told to check my white male privilege recently by a white woman in an argument. It's crazy, but that's the world we live in, folks. I'm going to be making another video shortly after this one. Thanks for tuning in. And, make sure you go to my page, hy.page/vradio, where you can find me on lots of other platforms like Rumble and Odyssey, etc. Because I have a feeling, my YouTube channel is only going to go so far. Take care.